Today, the world is interconnected through the use of electronic and internet service devices. This makes governments, businesses, and individuals susceptible to cyber attacks either through their infrastructure, systems, networks, or technologies. The government of Ghana, in line with its vision to digitize the economy, has deployed Ghana.gov, which is a digital service and revenue collection platform to provide a single point of access to government services for the public sector. Recent trends have proven that electronic government services that rely on modern information and communication technologies have helped in achieving governance objectives. There is, however, the need to apply technological processes and controls to protect these systems, networks, programs, devices, and data from cyber attacks and vulnerabilities. Hence, the critical call for cybersecurity development to reduce the risk of cyber attacks and to protect individuals and institutions against the unauthorized exploitation of systems, networks, and technologies. The call has led to the creation of the Cybersecurity Authority (CSA), established by the Cybersecurity Act 2020, Act 1038, to promote the development of cybersecurity and to regulate cybersecurity activities in the country. In July 2017, His Excellency the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, directed the Ministry of Communications to oversee cybersecurity in Ghana and appointed Dr. Albert Entry Boisianko as the National Cybersecurity Advisor to provide expert advice on the operationalization of the National Cybersecurity Policy and Strategy and the institutionalization of cybersecurity in Ghana to ensure Ghana's investment in ICT and digitalization is secured and protected.
Cybersecurity issues are therefore now firmly national security threats. Our country cannot fully reap the digital dividends associated with our adoption of ICT as a means of our socio-economic transformation if we fail to mitigate both existing and emerging cybersecurity threats.
The appointment of Dr. Entry Boisianko also saw the setup and operationalization of the National Cybersecurity Secretariat as an agency under the Ministry of Communications to coordinate Ghana's cybersecurity development through the implementation of priority and strategic initiatives and investments for a secure and resilient digital Ghana. Later that same year, the National Cybersecurity Interministerial Advisory Council (NCSIAC) and the National Cybersecurity Technical Working Group were inaugurated. The NCSIAC comprises sector ministers representing the Ministries of Communications and Digitalization, Finance, Defense, the Interior, Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, National Security, and the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice. The National Cybersecurity Technical Working Group also comprised representatives of relevant government agencies directly involved in cybercrime or cybersecurity: National Cybersecurity Center, National Communications Authority, National Information Technology Agency, Data Protection Commission, Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice, Judicial Service, Defense Intelligence, Ghana Armed Forces, Criminal Investigations Department, National Security Council Secretariat, the National Signals Bureau, Bureau of National Investigations, Bank of Ghana, Financial Intelligence Center, National Identification Authority, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, Research Department, Ghana Domain Name Registry, and the Economic and Organized Crime Office. In January 2018, the University of Oxford, together with the World Bank, conducted a cybersecurity study to assess Ghana's cybersecurity, and the findings of the assessment placed Ghana's cybersecurity maturity level at a formative stage. Subsequently, several initiatives were undertaken, and these included the formal adoption and operationalization of the National Cybersecurity Institutional Framework NCIF to provide policy as well as technical and operational directions for cybersecurity development. The National Cybersecurity Secretariat later transitioned into the National Cybersecurity Center (NCSC) and has since implemented a number of priority and strategic initiatives that have contributed to the goal of ensuring a secure and resilient digital Ghana. From 2017 to 2021, through the commitment of the Government of Ghana, the National Cybersecurity Center made tremendous strides, and these include the revision of the National Cybersecurity Policy and Strategy to provide a national direction and implementation plan for Ghana's cybersecurity development, and the passage of the Cybersecurity Act 2020, Act 1038, in November 2020, which was critical to provide a legal basis for cybersecurity development. To foster domestic and international cooperation and collaboration, the National Cybersecurity Center, with the support of the government, facilitated the ratification of relevant cybercrime or cybersecurity international conventions and treaties such as the Convention on Cybercrime, also known as the Budapest Convention, and the African Union Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection, also known as the Malabo Convention. The ECOWAS Regional Cybersecurity Cybercrime Strategy and the Regional Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Policy were also adopted to strengthen Ghana's international response in fighting cybercrime. Ghana also joined institutions like the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise and the Forum of Incident Response and Security Teams, first to promote and strengthen capacity building and incident response through international collaboration. Other key achievements was the development of Ghana's Computer Emergency Response Team (CERT) ecosystem and the institutionalization of the annual National Cybersecurity Awareness Month (NACSM) in October every year. On 1st October 2018, during the National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, NACSM, His Excellency Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, launched a 5-year National Cybersecurity Awareness Program dubbed as Safer Digital Ghana to build capacity and to raise awareness on cybercrime and to improve the country's cybersecurity readiness.
It is my pleasure to declare the National Cybersecurity Month and National Cybersecurity Awareness Campaign titled A Safer Digital Ghana duly launched.
The program focuses on children, the public, businesses, and government working with international partners like UNICEF, the Council of Europe, the World Bank, and the Security Governance Initiative (SGI) of the US Embassy. The annual National Cybersecurity Awareness Month has since witnessed a series of national and regional events to educate children and young people from selected senior high schools on cyber hygiene best practices and capacity building sessions for government ministries and state-owned institutions. There have also been thought leadership sessions involving dignitaries domestically and internationally to deliberate on cybersecurity strategies and approach, among others. The regional events, coordinated with UNICEF, recorded over 47,500 participants during the 2018 and 2019 editions. The 2020 edition witnessed the participation of over 61,000 stakeholders comprising government and non-government institutions, youth groups, professional bodies, the media, the general public, and industry players, among others. The program, which was augmented with media awareness sessions, traditional and social media, has improved the public awareness of cybercrimes and cybersecurity issues, even though a huge gap remains to be filled by the Cybersecurity Authority. A cybercrime or cybersecurity incident reporting points of contact (POC) managed by CERT Ghana has also been deployed since 2019 to provide citizens with multiple avenues and channels for reporting cyber-related incidents with ease and to receive advisory. The total number of contacts received through the BOC since then, 43,920. Actual incidents were 2,591 and total direct advisories were 20,183. Prominent among the incident reports are online fraud, the publication of non-consensual intimate images, online impersonation, malware attacks, online blackmail, website defacement, among others. A total of 14,663 cybersecurity advisories and guidance have also been provided to various government and private sector institutions, which has contributed to reduced cybersecurity incidents affecting businesses and organizations. To consolidate the achievements in cybersecurity development over the period, the 2020 Global Cybersecurity Index report of the International Communications Union (ITU) scored Ghana's cybersecurity development 86.69% on the metric, showing major progress from early ratings in 2017 and 2018, which were 32.6% and 43.7% respectively. The above achievements are based on the fact that, under the leadership of the Minister of Communication and Digitalization, Honorable Mrs. Ursula Owusu-Ekuful, cybersecurity issues have been framed not only as a national security issue, but also as a development issue in Ghana, and this was done through bipartisan approach. Following the passage of the Cybersecurity Act 2020, Act 1038, the Cybersecurity Authority was launched on 1st October 2021 for the regulation of cybersecurity activities, including standardization, accreditation, compliance, and licensing procedures for cybersecurity professionals, entities, technologies, services, and practices in the ecosystem.
The Cybersecurity Authority was established by Section 2 of Act 1038 to regulate cybersecurity activities in the country. The cybersecurity domain is one of the critical areas of our digital ecosystem. In this regard, the authority is also mandated to prevent, manage, and respond to cybersecurity incidents if those incidents occur. But most importantly, from the developmental standpoint, the authority is mandated to promote the development of cybersecurity in the country to ensure Ghana achieve a secured and resilient digital ecosystem. Specifically, one area of our mandate is the protection of critical information infrastructure. If you look at sections 35 to 40, the provisions are quite clear, and already the sector minister has taken action by way of designating a number of institutions considered as critical information infrastructure institutions. These institutions are critical in the sense that if attackers are successfully able to compromise the systems, it could affect the confidentiality, integrity, availability of these infrastructures, and that could lead to national security consequences, or in some cases, economic and social consequences. In other words, it could impact negatively on our economy, and that is why they are critical information infrastructure. So the authority has a huge mandate by ensuring these systems, which are owned by both public sector, private sector institutions, are protected. That is very important. Incident response and coordination is another important area. There isn't a question anymore whether we will be attacked or not. Attack will happen, certainly, and now is a question of, once we are attacked, how quickly can we rebound? You need instant response capabilities. So the acts provide mechanism by which the authority can set up the necessary infrastructure, necessary coordination arrangement to make sure that once attack happens within our jurisdiction, we will be able to respond swiftly and get our digital services back to business. That is very important. But as a regulatory body, the authority has a mandate on licensing, accreditation, and setting of standards. Licensing is key. We have a number of institutions that are operating within the cybersecurity area, and the authority will license them once we have started operations in this particular area. But there are also going to be accreditation and setting of standards even around cybersecurity product and services within this country. And of course, we'll do so in collaboration with other institutions. So you have, for example, Standard Authority, which has a regulatory mandate as well in terms of setting standards. You have the National Accreditation Institution. So this mandate will be achieved working closely with other state institutions which are mandated to work in one area or the other. International cooperation is one area of importance. Cyber is a global commodity. In other words, our citizens, businesses, government depend hugely on digital infrastructure services that are owned or hosted abroad. Therefore, the authority has a mandate to make sure we're able to work with our partners abroad to be able to respond to cybersecurity incidents when they occur. In this regard, the government for the past years acceded to two important treaties, the Budapest Convention and also the African Union Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection. These were necessary arrangements to ensure that we'll be able to implement our international cooperation arrangements. That is very important. Awareness creation is key. There's a huge gap within this space. If you look at the rate by which our citizens are using digital services, and you look at awareness gap, we have a lot to do in that particular area. So the authority has a mandate to build capacity, both in the public sector but also private sector, and create awareness among our citizens as the government works to improve our digital connectivity and services. That's an important area. There is another dimension to our work: protection of children. The children in this country are exposed to certain harms, either the content or the content they establish, and sometimes even their own conduct. And therefore, the authority has a mandate to ensure that children, as they enjoy using the internet for studying, they should be protected. So that is also very important mandate. Now, the authority has certain regulatory functions around how criminal justice and law enforcement operate their activities with respect to cyber security matters. So if you take section 69 to 77, there are certain provisions that allow the agencies, authorized agencies, to be able to obtain the necessary information as part of investigations. The aspect of data retention by service providers. The authority's mandate is to set regulations for legal and appropriate use of these provisions, and to ensure that the privacy of citizens are also ensured, while law enforcement are able to also carry out their duties to protect the citizens and the state for that matter. So these are the prominent areas of our work, but there's an important consideration here as far as our mandate is concerned. Cybersecurity is a multi-sectorial issue. It covers broad areas. There are a number of agencies which have legal mandates to address the issue. For example, you take the AG's office. They are mandated to prosecute cases. So cyber crime prosecutions will therefore fall under their remit. You take the CID. It's empowered to investigate all criminal cases, so it has a role. You take EOCO. It is a state institution with a mandate to deal with organized crime. And now cyber is a huge area by which organized crime is perpetrated. You have our national intelligence agencies who also needs to find intelligence to protect us as people. Now each one of these agencies legally has a mandate to do so. What then the role of the Cybersecurity Authority? The authority will have the overall regulatory oversight and to ensure coordination. Therefore, Section 13 to 14 makes provisions for the establishment of the Joint Cybersecurity Committee, by which coordination around the various mandates and roles can be effectively operationalized to ensure we achieve a goal. The Act is also important, and historically, I think it's something that we need to highlight. The Act empowers the authority to apply administrative penalties for non-compliance, which I believe is a game changer regarding compliance and enforcement regime when it comes to application of law to address societal challenges. The Cybersecurity Act really leads the way, and the authority has a policy direction to adopt what we call collaborative regulatory engagement with all stakeholders, and we've started doing so. And we believe that through that approach, collectively we'll be able to do our bit to ensure a secure and resilient digital Ghana. The computer emergency response setup that we have as a country is a decentralized setup because we have different sectors. For example, financial sector is a key sector, the telecommunication sector, the government sector. So the acts allow for the establishment of sectorial sets. Already we are actually operating sectorial sets. We work with the central bank, which leads the coordination of incident within the financial sector. Then we work with the National Communications Authority, which also lead in terms of coordination of incident within the telecommunication area. NITA is an important player in this space because they also lead incident response within the government space. So that is what we call the decentralized system of incident coordination. This is good. It makes us effective. It gives responsibility to our sectorial stakeholders, but also accountability in terms of how we engage together to ensure that the country is protected. And we seek to accredit other institutions. The financial sector is one way we are currently looking at. And as the digital economy is expanding, there will be the need to accredit specific sectors and get them into the broader architecture. The private sector is not excluded. Indeed, we working as part of our licensing requirement for cybersecurity service providers to also rope into engaging with state institutions by way of incident reporting, but also collective response once we discover cybersecurity incident.
Cybersecurity is a very key component of the digitalization of any country. I like to say that it's the other side of the coin of digitalization. You can't digitalize without looking at the security implications of opening up and adopting digital infrastructure systems and services. So for us, we're particularly keen on putting in place the proper architecture to protect our digital ecosystem. And that is why since this government took office in 2017, we have set up the Cybersecurity Center with limited staff, but they've achieved a lot in the last 5 years. And we worked on promulgation of the Cybersecurity Act to put in place the legal and regulatory framework for all the policies and initiatives that we intended to secure. We need to protect our critical national information infrastructure, and we need to ensure that we have trained professionals. We have the local capacity to protect our digital systems. We need to develop an ecosystem in which both the public and the private sector realize that they have a role to play. And as the adage goes, a chain is as strong as its weakest link. And so if we don't keep an eye out on the various actors in the sector, from the training of cybersecurity professionals, accreditation of professionals, monitoring and evaluation of the systems that are put in place, it will be difficult to sleep peacefully at night. The cyber criminals are not asleep. And as the world moves more and more onto virtual platforms and utilize digital systems, it is clear that they are also taking advantage of the increased dependence on digital systems to expand their criminal enterprise.
Our preparedness, our commitment to the fight against the threat of within the cyberspace by committing to a lot of clauses, some global, some continental, some national. This morning's activity is part of a plethora of events that have already begun from the beginning of this month. The understanding is that from the Cyber Security Authority, the introduction of this Cybersecurity Act 2020, Act 1038, the authority has commenced regulatory activities that is aimed at impacting on service providers and professionals within the cybersecurity industry. Now, Cybersecurity Awareness Month, we know the significance of what we are witnessing, not just this morning, but for the entire month. It's been observed for the fact that within the cyberspace, within the online space, a lot of people are vulnerable. Information seems to be at commonplace, and almost everybody seems to be available for information that is supposed to be private. There seems to be a lot of invasion within a cyberspace. So this morning's activity is part of arming all of us, especially at the national level, to ensure that we feel safer, we feel secure within the global space. The program for 2022 has already been launched, and that was on the 3rd of this month. The launching looked at a number of activities that will be observed in the course of the month. Yesterday, there was a stakeholder forum on licensing of cybersecurity service providers, accreditation of cybersecurity establishment, and accreditation of cybersecurity service providers and professionals. Already, memorandum of understanding is being signed between Ghana and Mozambique. A second one has also been signed between Ghana and Rwanda. And as I stated earlier, this is to signal our commitment and preparedness to join the global fight. Before we begin the major event where we call on divinity for divine assistance, we want to specially acknowledge all of you. And once again, it is on a very thank you note. Thanks to all of you for honoring this morning's invitation. My name is Mary Amabawa. I'm a lecturer with the University of Cape Coast, and I'll be your MC for today's event. We begin on a note of prayer. We want to call on Mr. Ansa to usher us before divinity. Please, let's welcome him with a hand of applause.
Hello, good morning. Kindly bear with me as I share a word of prayer. Father, so we are thankful for the gift of life today. We thank you for making it possible for us to see this day. We commit this morning's forum into your hands. We ask for divine wisdom as we go through this deliberation. Our prayer is that we have an impactful implementation going after this deliberation. We ask this through your Son, Jesus, and our personal Savior. And we all say a big amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. We especially would want to acknowledge board members of the Cybersecurity Authority. And as we are appreciating them, is it okay for you if we can just give them a hand of applause? All the board members of the Cybersecurity Authority, thank you. Thank you very much for the strength and the push you're giving to this program and for instituting this at the national level. We appreciate you. And also management of the Cybersecurity Authority. Let's appreciate them, or management. We appreciate all of you. We appreciate all our sponsors. And on this note, we want to especially acknowledge the Institute of ICT Professionals, GH. We appreciate you. Mr. David Gow, Richard Amanfo, together with your team, thank you very much. AFOS Foundation is also a sponsor. Hannah Schlingman, thank you very much. A special good morning to you. We appreciate you. We're also appreciating GCB Bank PLC. Let's appreciate GCB, please. Thank you. And this morning, apart from the fact that you and I will be making a lot of note, we would also be doing a lot of clapping. Yeah, so let's give it, that's how to signal our strength. There are also supporting partners, we want to acknowledge them. Republic Bank, Comsys, Stanbic, Virtual InfoSec Africa Limited, Huawei Technologies, MTN. We acknowledge Fidelity Bank Limited. We acknowledge ICT Consortium, Alisa Hotel, MasterCard, E-Crime Bureau, Maxim, UNICEF. We acknowledge GIFIC. Thank you very much. The Ghana Association of Bankers GAB, the Council of Europe, Oduma Solutions Limited, Metrolens, Express Pay, and then the event is also supported by GIZ. We have the Governance for Inclusive Development Program, co-founded by the UK, Foreign, Commonwealth, and Development Offices. We are streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube. I guess at the right time we'll have it on the screen. Is it possible to have it on the screen so people can follow us? It's on the Facebook page of CSA. If you can go there, it will give us a lot of pleasure so that we know we're not just having a large following, but the people who are following also are taking the significant note that we wish then at the national level we want to this moment take the welcome remarks and then the introduction of the speaker. Mr. Kawasaki is a member of the Cybersecurity Authority Governing Board. Let's welcome Mr. Kawasaki for the opening remarks. The clapping was very brief. Thank you.
A very good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for making time to come here this morning. You're welcome to this program, and let me just, on the lighter note, there was something you said, something about divinity and everything. You know, that sounded very cool, and I'll have to memorize it so that when I go to another function, I can use it. At least my English vocabs would be doing well. You know, there's something about academia. You know, they speak so well. Today we're here to have a forum on the cybersecurity regulations and opportunities. And I think that, you know, someone asked me a question, why do we even need regulations in cybersecurity? And I think that your mere presence here tells us a lot, that you have an interest in what we're doing as an authority, as a nation, and that we cannot just have a free-for-all in this space. If you look at, there's one of the unpleasant topics that we have as a country, the Galamsey menace, where suddenly it's a free-for-all and people are doing whatever they want. Clearly, that's not the kind of thing we want to do in cybersecurity. And the reasons are pretty straightforward. I think in her address, or in her little speech, she mentioned that you're interested in the privacy of the citizens. We're interested in securing our data, our critical infrastructure, and also preserving value, because cybersecurity actually creates value if you're able to address the risk. You convert a risk to an opportunity. But then it goes beyond that. You also want to institutionalize professionalism in the space. And so on the backdrop of all this, we would have to, as a nation, look at having regulations and ensuring that we enforce these regulations. Now, if you look at the regulations and what comes out of it, clearly there are opportunities, and I'm not going to be the person to talk about opportunities, but a lot of opportunities from that sector. Yesterday, when we looked at licensing the service providers, we looked at the professionals. You know, there's a lot of debate as to what criteria we're going to use. And that's the reason why we're here today, to also look at the opportunities. Because together as a people, the regulator, the authority is not going to be both a referee and a player. That's not the intention. But we want to ensure that we create a playing field that fosters hard work, but also gives assurance to all and sundry that we're doing things right. My intention is not to do a presentation here, but I'm going to introduce someone who is going to do the presentation for us. He's the Director General, Acting, of the Cybersecurity Authority. And many of you know him. He's someone who's been very interested in this space. I met him many years ago. He was then doing some presentation at the Bank of Ghana, and that's my introduction to him. And we've been friends since then. He is in the person of Dr. Albert M.G. Boisiaku. I think we can give him a round of applause, even as we welcome him to the stage. Thank you.
moderator, thank you. But you really gave the practical meaning to the direction you gave. I heard your applause very loud, louder than my colleagues who are here. Thank you. Permit me to recognize the two members of the governing board of the Cybersecurity Authority who are here. The person of the very person who spoke a few minutes ago, and also Madam Adelaide, a lawyer practicing in the area of ICT, including cyber. I think I also need to recognize, where is David? Institute of ICT professional. Yeah, I want to commend you in particular. I think the institute came into being not long ago, but you've shown a lot of visibility. I've been following how, for example, you write articles about the act, both the good and the bad, promoting its adoption, making strong recommendations for the authority to implement. So I must say, this particular engagement partly is a result of some of the advocacy that you've been doing, either through the interaction with the stakeholders or some of the publications that you do. And we want to commend you for that leadership to work with us. But I think it is also fair to recognize the role that the industry has played. ISACA, various individuals. It's always happened that the private sector takes the lead, right? In terms of awareness creation, building standards, developing systems to secure our digital development. And I think, again, before the Cybersecurity Center and Authority came into being, we had a number of you who were already active in the sector. Personally, I think it's about 11 years ago when I relocated to the country. Many of you were still here working. So I want to commend you for the various work that you've done to bring us to a level that ITU can recognize us as, among our African colleagues, being placed on the third in terms of some of the building blocks that we put in place. Again, manifesting in the fact that other African countries are willing to come and learn from us. The almighty rise in Rwanda, seeing something good in Ghana, to come and sign an MOU, Mozambique and few countries also talking to us. But again, the commendation goes to you who are in the industry, who are driving it actually, the need for cybersecurity readiness for our country. My board member has directed me to be brief, so I'm going to share certain pointers, and then that will allow you to also make your contributions. Again, yesterday, I think we had a good engagement with respect to the consultation that we've been doing to get the input of stakeholders before the licensing framework actually come into effect starting January 1st, 2023. I believe we can still solicit inputs and ideas from this session, if need be. But the focus of the presentation is really to outline certain opportunities for the industry. Again, personally, I want to demystify the fact that when we hear regulation, there is a different sentiment to that. Regulation, charges, fees, too much burden. But I really want to, as an industry, cybersecurity industry, we need to see the opportunity. The wider ICT industry, what opportunities are around what we are doing? I mean, beyond the primary goal of protecting and securing our digital ecosystem, I think we need to see the tangibles, if I should put it this way, the tangible opportunities that we can take advantage of as professionals, the tangible opportunities that we need to also create for people who look up to us, who want to develop cybersecurity career, who want certain guidance, certain pathway, certain motivation, who are looking into the future to develop skills, their profession in the area of cybersecurity. I think those are the things I want us to reflect on today. So I'm waiting for my slide, folks. There are 8 areas, not 7, but I've added one when I came to sit down, that I would like to provide a bit of highlight. And I will still be available to provide clarity if that becomes necessary. The Cybersecurity Act is quite a comprehensive act. I'll tell you a bit of story how it started. Initially, the idea was to have 3 pieces of legislations. So when the sector minister, which I praise for her leadership in bringing us this far, requested that the usual process is to start a concept note, right? That is how government actions start. That is a policy. You need to reference that. If you want to implement a policy, the first one is to articulate those things in the concept note. And the idea was to look at 3 different legislation. One was the legislations on the authority. NCA has a similar model. So you pick, NCA has its own act, National Communications Authority Act. So the provisions only deals with the administration of the institution. Then you look at the cybersecurity core subject areas. So the protection of critical information infrastructure, the incident response, the licensing, which are core subject matter focus areas, are also addressed, consistent with how electronic communication services are also done. Then the last one was looking at the law, what we call the lawful interception. I think some time ago, the previous government wanted to introduce this legislation. Was it 2015 or 16? Which was labeled a spy bill, right? It was withdrawn because of the civil society agitation and also some members of parliament. So these were the 3 things. Indeed, on the 3rd one, there was a need to have that. I'm not sure how many of you also have one foot in the national security environment. But when you also have one foot there, you appreciate that it's not only what you see as an industry, but there are also needs. Therefore, always the question is to balance the needs of national security and, of course, the fears of citizens in terms of potential abuse of such interception provisions. But I think most of you are technical, and at the basic level, you know that now criminals are using full disk encryption, right? If you've done forensic, at what point? If you were targeting an investigation, at what point do you get information? You suspect the subject is using full disk encryption. And normally setup is configured in such a way that once you turn off the device, it's gone dead. I'm not a lawyer, but it's funny getting to know, in terms of working in that space, that suspects, no matter how reasonable, despite the reasonability of the suspicion, has still got a right not to disclose what? The encryption keys, true or false? And the law has nothing to do with that. It is up to the lawyers to explain that principle of law. But again, when you have these instances, and you have a national security environment which also needs to do their work, with respect to terrorism, human trafficking, drug trafficking, you need to have that mechanism to allow for, again, lawful interception for them to do their work. So I think probably reviewing the previous law, the problem was possibly the procedures, the mechanisms were not quite elaborate. There wasn't much clarity, and we didn't have much of the safeguards. But thankfully, Ghana ratified the Budapest Convention that was in 2018. The convention, which is seen as a human rights-centric convention, it still has provisions on interception real-time communication, content data, subscriber data. And we had to domesticate that convention into this. So originally, but again, I keep on telling my colleagues that when you task them to do something, I said, look, you do your best, but it may not end up like the way you want it. 3 different legislations, we ended up getting one. Few integration adjustments, so on and so forth, because of the nature of the process. And I think the 7th Parliament ought to be congratulated for the work that they did in getting the law passed. So it's a little bit comprehensive, and we are not here to discuss all the provisions. I've outlined 7 areas that I would like us to look at it. This is a law. I think anybody who goes to the website will be able to pick this up. So let's move on to the areas I would like to touch on a little bit. Good. These are the areas, based on the work the authority is doing, has certain tangible benefit to the industry. I use the word tangible. The wider benefit is we secure, we protected Ghana. Digital economy is protected in a sustainable basis. There's no question about that. That as we seek to digitalize, then we have the necessary protection mechanism. But these areas are things we need to discuss. Now, regulations on the protection of critical information infrastructure. Now, please leave it there. Regulations with respect to the protection of critical information infrastructure. The 2 will be the regulation on the licensing of service providers. The 3 will be regulations with respect to accreditation of cybersecurity establishment. The 4 will be the regulation on accreditation of cybersecurity professionals. Then the 5th is the regulations on accreditation of sectorial sets. The industry forum is another area. And there are a few ideas we'd like to share with you in terms of the operationalization of the Cybersecurity Fund, which I will make an appeal to the industry to help with the advocacy to ensure that Ghana establishes a sustainable financing to deal with our cybersecurity issues. When you hear the story of Singapore, a country of 6 million people, dedicating about 700 million USD to protect government networks alone, within a period of 3 years. Now, I'd like to dwell a little bit on this because sometimes when you put this, some Ghanaians, but Singapore is rich, so how you compare? Yes, it's true. But you see, we shouldn't forget about the fact that cyber is a global commodity. The attackers are also global. We are subject to the same principle of demand and supply as far as in economic terms. In fact, we are at a disadvantage. The porosity of our environment alone further heighten our the risk exposure comparatively to my colleagues in Singapore. If you just pick awareness creation alone, Singaporeans are better aware with respect to their cyber security consciousness, with respect to our Ghanaians. If you look at standardization, you are not likely to find crack password, crack operating systems running in Singaporean government environment. But you go and do a certain survey in a government environment. So you have all this. We can list in terms of our vulnerability, our risk profile as a country compared to Singapore's vulnerability risk profile. And then you look at how much money they are putting in, right? And us. You take the GDP question out. I'm a scientist, and I always will want to look at the scientific methods. And that's why I'm saying that when you take cyber, it's subject to the same principle of demand and supply, whichever country. An attacker in Romania can target somebody in Singapore. The attacker can still target somebody in Ghana. But we are likely to suffer because of the porosity of our environment. I think you reflect so that when next time you hear about, sorry, UK has put this, yeah, UK is an advanced economy. Yes. If we don't take care, we will forever be catching up. And that will not be a sustainable model to protect our developing digital economy. But permit me again to touch a little bit. I'm not sure if you have the provisions, not this, I want the provisions on the CI, if you have it somewhere, as the extract from the law. If anybody has the law, you can look at it. I'm looking at sections 35 to 40. Our CI head is here. Okay. And there are certain, I'll read. If it's not here, I'd like to read some few references. Okay? But if you have the law, this is now serving like a Bible authority. So 35 talks about designation of critical information infrastructure. And the minister may, on the advice of the authority, designate a computer system or computer network as a critical information infrastructure if the minister considers that the computer system or the network is essential for national security, economic and social well-being, and the rest are there. And certain areas have been identified: communication sector, banking, public utilities, transportation, protection of safety, international business, so on and so forth. I will encourage you to read sections 35 to 40. This particular provision, which the authority has started implementing, has its own tangible benefit to the industry. As I speak, a total of 189 institutions across 13 sectors have been designated as critical information infrastructure owners. It's not just designation. The authority has outdoled the directive for the protection of the CIs. The directive outlined specific activities, risk management activities, from policy level, from compliance audit aspect, from technical protection mechanisms, incident response, and so on and so forth, that we need to put in place. Now, if you do analysis, the directive, and if you look at the Bank of Ghana directive, which came in to address critical challenges within the financial sector, if you read that directive, and those in the banks, I wish there is a microphone to someone. How many? I would like GCB to answer me this question. Mr. GCB, who is also a collaborator, what is the minimum number of cybersecurity professionals that, based on your environment as a critical information infrastructure owner, is likely to recruit? Between minimum and maximum, how many in terms of cybersecurity professionals?
Also, for GCB and our size, I would say that between 10 to about 30.
10 to what?
About 30.
30. So I'll take. It's a big monster. You are right. So let's take 10. I'll take the minimum. I can still go further lower. Now multiply 10 by 100 and what? 89. The mathematicians among us. Please. One word. So, can one
1890.
So more than 1,005. Now the tangible implication is, if we collaborate very well and implement the directive, which we are going to, with the designation of just the first designation, because a lot more are going to go. It has created how many cybersecurity jobs? 1,005. This is a tangible benefit of regulations. I know before the regulation, people were already in employment, but once you have the regulations, of course, the banking sector was strong, isn't it, because of the directive. But look at the other sectors. Who was really policing the health sector? Who was policing the education sector? Who was really policing the government sector? in terms of making sure you have this competence. Let's even drop the number to 5. It means you're not less than. Let's take less than 500, right? Are those who are already, in existence. It means the Cybersecurity Act has created, at least from just the CI perspective, about 1,000 cybersecurity jobs. This is a tangible benefit. We should be looking at this as an industry, positioning ourselves, but also working with authority to ensure that we enforce these provisions. That was in the scope. In fact, we drafting the law, nobody thought of the number of jobs that it was going to create. Those are the afterward effects. The core goal is to protect the systems, because that is the heart of our survivor. But that is what regulation, positive, forward-thinking regulation does to an industry. The second one, which I would like to also comment a little bit. Please, you stay there. I'll be reading from here. Go back to the 7 areas. Right. What's the next one? Regulation on licensing of cybersecurity providers. We are all fresh from the engagement we had yesterday. And what is a tangible benefit for industry person? CK Bruce is here. And he knows very well what it means by being licensed to operate a cybersecurity service. CK will tell you, there are a lot of people who have come in. I don't want to use the word mushroom things. Of course, they will be coming. But looking at the track record of what you've done in many years, we need certain protection. In an environment of fraud, misrepresentation, deception. Sometimes when I read the news, lawyer athlete, the people are misrepresenting, in fact, faking themselves as lawyers in court. Are they true? How do they do it? But that's it. Medical doctors are also being picked up as well. So again, this environment, we need to look at we need to scan our environment. Those things are there. There have been instances, my own private sector job, having to go and investigate somebody who was given access to a critical system. The person couldn't do the job, and the system was shut down for about a week. Again, when we investigated, it was just an individual who hasn't got any assets, not a loan, no insurance, nothing. We exposed. I've had another case, CID. I wish they were here. One of the first cases I did in this country. And I'll say this. The tradition has changed. Those days, 10 years ago, when CID, one of the modus operandi, arrest a suspect, they call the suspect, they turn on the computer, and they say, look, show me, open it. Look at it. The suspect computer, open it, and we run through to find out where the evidence is. I believe this is a common knowledge. The principle of forensics is you do not alter right at the point of what? Seizure. So the case was gotten messy. That was a huge fraud involving a huge amount of money. And the funny thing, the commander actually brought his son to access the device. They lost the case. There's that type of case that that this person has done it. The evidence were there all over the place. But that's where I learned that it's not only about the substance in law, right? Also the procedure. How you do it also matters. How you do it. It's not I've done it. No. Once you do that, I think you are very far from forensics in terms of rationalization. How you do it. In fact, it outweighs, doesn't it? I think the first principle is legal authorization without meeting that. So these are the things which have been going on within our ecosystem. How do you address this? That will be able to identify institutions which are credible track record. That businesses will also have the integrity to what? To state that, indeed, we have used this service and they have this level of competency and integrity to do the job. There have been instances, we know, sometimes financial sector, they come in, we did migration, we did an audit, and after 1 week, we had certain what? System failure, some attacks. We've seen it. At least I've seen it more than 2, 3, 4 times. I think the idea of licensing cybersecurity professor is towards what other noble professions are doing. You can't just even, well, you're a lawyer. You can, nobody will take your legal title from you, right? But to exercise, to provide legal services for profit, your establishment ought to be given that legal basis to do so. Equally, you can't just take a job. Yes, you're an auditor. But then, to do financial audit, I think ICAG should be a body to certify to do the audit. What we're doing, yes, represents innovation on the African continent, but within the bigger picture, is consistent with how professions have evolved. Digital forensics, cybersecurity has come very far. That requires that kind of. There is actually ISO standard for digital investigations, which proudly I contributed through my PhD research. So if ISO has developed a standard for digital investigations, and you are licensing issues around these processes, I mean beyond the ISO 2007-1, which are also there. So it's just that Ghana has taken the lead again, but we're drawing inspiration and experience from Singapore, I can assure you, to ensure that they have started, and it's one of the credible partners we are working with. The benefit is, if you are good for this profession, you will stand out and you will get a business. It's likely to keep people, not just the technical competency, there will be background checks. There will be vetting as part of the requirement. So that at least we will be very careful when you go to that environment you're working, knowing that you also be responsible for your own internal employees. Sometimes it's so funny. I've seen this in public and private sector. Employees within that environment, sometimes the worst they do, you'll be responsible. So I think that is, again, tangible benefit to protect you as hardworking, committed, serious service providers to be able to exercise your responsibilities. The third one is the regulation on cybersecurity establishment. We had to introduce this also because it's still part of the broader service provision. And I'll use the CID. Those days again, did any one of you hear about cocaine turned into what? Soda powder. Did you hear that? When you go strictly by the licensing regulation, which is provided in section, I believe, 49, you're not likely to, because these are provisions which is really meant to regulate those who are making profits, right, from their work. But you still have establishment operating within our jurisdiction. Their objective is not to make profit. But those services, those establishments have huge impact in the wider digital economy. Again, for forensic lab, it has impact even on the criminal justice sector. Look, a point where the fate of somebody could be determined. That is huge. You can't just take it out. So we use the provisions on our standards and frameworks to also accredit establishment. And currently we are looking at two broader areas, the success angle and then the digital forensics angle. So if you are a bank and you have your cybersecurity systems, right, the whole branches, they are connected. That's where the detection, response, and other things. And you want it to be accredited. We take you through a process. Of course, I think international accreditation, the first has been doing that, right? You join a certain block. at an international level, isn't it? At a domestic level, the whole idea is to get some of this into the system. So guidelines, certain procedures, best practices are followed. The authority can come and inspect, and that accreditation level is given to you. You know what? It will have implication. If, for example, something happens within your environment, you take the person to court, and normally some of these corporate level cases start with internal investigations. And you make a case that your establishment is what? It's accredited by the Cybersecurity Authority, meaning there is a certain level of professional standard that you are using. Again, our jurisdictions they don't care about first. The first gives you what? Industry recognition. But when it comes to, for example, criminal matters, they are likely to look at what the internal regulator has done. And that is why you need this sort of accreditation, which will not deviate from any international standard that we all know. Industry will drive this. Equally, I do expect my criminal justice folks to know that your forensic lab wouldn't just be a lab, it's just for CID, but we will still ensure that your operations at the lab meet the standard so that hard drives cannot be swapped. I know what I'm talking about, right? I think now we don't see much of hard drive. But those days, you swap it. It's there in custody, the box. They have no clue. But you could just take out the hard drive and replace it with something else. And then the defense will mount a case. We don't believe what they brought. You go and then let's examine the device which is there. We need to. And if CID fails to do so, the implication is defense lawyers can call experts and come and say, look, CID is not following standards. That has been established by a national body that has this mandate. Look at the tangible benefits. On one side, your own institution being given that label, but on the other side, the protection that we clean up the system, that even from the state level, if somebody produces evidence that is submitted to court, we can have that confidence in the process. That is what I call a tangible benefit for the industry. Regulations on accreditation of professionals. I think here, I don't really need to have much to say, because we all belong to professional bodies. And it's a citing. Minimum, you abide by a certain code of what? Conduct. Minimum, you are expected to undertake certain professional level courses for you to be, relevant in terms of whatever you're doing. That requirement is there. So somebody is asking, why then accreditation? If I take my good colleague, Sir Alex, who has CISSP, I only know him by the technical CISSP he has. In terms of the wider risk around him, we have no clue. The competency I know because I've worked with him. But on the other side, I also know somebody else who has still got one level of certification, but when the person was asked to demonstrate that competency, you're a technical person, you say you're a forensic examiner, you're a pen tester, the rudimentary requirement, we should be convinced once we put you in front of a workstation. 0. How do we address this issue? Remember, we are protecting critical information infrastructure. How do you just allow anybody to go and access such critical systems with this kind of risks? I believe this will be a game changer. It is our expectation, and I've been discussing this with some of the board members. We've signed, and Madam Moderator, you did mention about some of the MOU we've signed. The medium-term benefit we expect us. I must say, Rwanda, Mozambique want to adapt what we're doing, this film process. The expectation is, if we are able to give this to them also to adopt, we expect certain interoperability. Interoperability means that somebody may be accredited in Ghana because our processes that we are using, Somebody may be accredited in Rwanda. Rwanda is a serious country, and they're going to drive this. It's likely for you to go to Rwanda, perform cybersecurity services with the same, because I'm telling you, in the next 5-10 years, many African countries will be following the same path. Please take note of that. But I'm just talking about the medium, long-term benefit of having such accreditation. That another jurisdiction, especially with a free continental trade agreement coming into effect, which allow you possibly to travel to Sierra Leone, any other country to do cybersecurity, that will help you because they will believe the accreditation process, beyond the technical competency, the vetting process that we have in place, they can entrust their systems to you to work within. That is a tangible benefits we should be looking at with respect to the regulation of professionals. But again, I think yesterday we made it very clear, we do not want to apply the principle of exclusion. And most of the time in the public engagement, people ask, how are you getting those without formal education to also get into cybersecurity? We hope to use the scheme to create certain pathways. Again, that could be the medium term, 2-5 years along the line, to ensure that we'll be able to get technically talented people who do not or didn't have the opportunity to go to our universities to still be able to follow through certain technical competencies. At least cybersecurity technician, you need them, doesn't it? The analysts will be detecting and be responding to those issues. It doesn't really have to be a university degree to do so. We can create this opportunity also to have our citizens to develop the necessary competencies to help us defend our cyberspace from the military angle. Now, regulation on accreditation of sectorial sets is also another area. And if you read section, so sectorial sets, section 41 to 48, Ghana is currently implementing what we call a decentralized system of set. The decentralized approach is you have the national set, the sectorial set. Because we have regulatory bodies who have specific mandates. Financial sector is a highly regulated environment. That is one. Telecommunication sector is one. The health sector. Government sector also is unique. In adopting this, we took into consideration how we can effectively address our incident response issues. And one principle that guided us is this. When you look at the broader picture, I think the goal is one. We have a common goal. It's only differentiated responsibilities. That was a principle that determined that, look, let's go with a decentralized approach. Let's empower the sectors by way of accreditation so that they can take care of that sector. So military sector sets is empowered, accredited, to deal with issues emanating from the military environment. Of course, their core mandate is determined based on their mandate, their internal network, but also our cyber defenses against potential external actors, including state actors. So that principle was adopted to allow different sectors to have a role in this. But again, you need discipline. You are sharing the responsibilities. Discipline means that there's a way that we need to work, reporting. The fact that you are a sectorial set doesn't mean when you get an incident, you sit on it. That is not cybersecurity. I believe some of you followed the story of 9/11. I think the conclusion was, it wasn't because there wasn't any intelligence, right? It was lack of what? Sharing. My private life, there was a particular month, I handled 3 different cases within a bank. The funny thing was, ladies and gentlemen, the very attack, modus operandi, the tools that were used to move the money was the same group of people who also affected the other ones. No one was sharing the information. Without information sharing, there isn't anything we call cybersecurity. So the accreditation mechanism is to outline those mechanisms that the CSA will not need to go to GC Bank directly, but it will work with what, the BOG, which should also have the capacity. So BOG is going to receive accreditation as a sectorial set to ensure that once incident happens, still within the 24 hours, that information is able to get back to what? The CSA. It's not really CSA wanting to be seen doing the work. No. I said the goal is different, to deter cybercrime, to prevent attacks on the environment, but in a manner that will work. This is our expectation in terms of how we want the sectorial set. Now, why, again, the accreditation of the cybersecurity establishment are so important? Once we accredit your private sector, I'm talking of private businesses, who is running a managed service as a business. Once you are accredited, one aspect of that is also contributed to the incident what? Sharing. But it's not just contributing. You also receive what? The information that you need to pass on to your constituents. But once you are accredited, then you are also formalized into the process. This is, again, a huge benefit for the industry that we are creating. Industry Forum was carefully discussed. It is to help the governance of cybersecurity and to take away the notion that cybersecurity is only a government sector job. The idea is to have the industry forum established, because sometimes we also have a problem with home industry. Sometimes we don't know. We are a little bit, we have, do we say, our front is divided. Loyally, I don't think, how is the legal front looks like? I was hearing about buying another one. Later you can comment on that. Again, we wouldn't, there are several issues of ICT professionals. There are multiple institutions, but the industry even goes beyond the cybersecurity. We will want, again, the concept here is to have a formalized arrangement that every industry player can contribute to the cybersecurity activities through the industry forum. Sometimes just the basic invitations that my team send out, you get a call, but you send out invitation to people, you didn't send me one. Sometimes it becomes very difficult. He sent the institutions for his company and others. They've forgotten that I set up my company first, even before my job. You see, you have all sorts of funny things coming up. Once you have an industry forum, the industry forum runs the industry's relationship with what? The government. It's as simple as that. Set up the industry forum, hold the industry forum to account. I think that accusation about government actors, personally, as long as I'm running the institution, I will want to avoid that. Let's set up the industry forum. Set up the mechanisms. Set out clearly the participation. And that will represent you. And it's not government. I think we need to avoid this. Sometimes it's not helpful, but sometimes it hasn't even got merit. It's time wasting. It does not support the progressive agenda of developing the industry. And I want to be candid on this. So there is an important reason that an industry forum concept is here. Again, I will leave it to the industry. Remember, the law is very clear to start the process. But Sekar, who has been, and who is still one of us, I think has given me certain pointers. And I believe sooner than what, later, there will be certain engagement to really operationalize it. But again, industry forum, even where there's an issue, where the officers of the authority, probably their actions and inactions are not in the best way. We deal with that with what? The industry forum level. Let's take advantage. That is opportunity for us to be on board. If you don't get involved, because the person who is there, you don't like him, it's your problem. It's not government. Sometimes I think we ourselves, we got problems. Just that there's somebody there, he doesn't like him. No, I don't think we should. Professionals, I think we should be able to get ourselves out of some of this. It's not necessary. If we really, the commitment is there, devoid of personal sentiment, get involved. We want champions. Articulate your views. Drive it in a manner that you want it to work. I think that should be the principle. And I'm happy. And I'll be very willing, myself and my team will support the industry's agenda going forward. Now, that is linked to the last opportunity I think we want to share with you. And in this, the minister has made it very clear. Once we have a cybersecurity fund fully established and operationalized, one area, because you don't just put industry forum and say what? One area, and I've discussed with my good friend Carl, that you could make available X amount of what? Money. 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, $1 million. Industry. Bring ideas to implement. That is what we expect. Once we have sustainable financing, it's not just government money. And that's why industries reps are sitting on the board. And again, even at this point, in terms of the governance structure of the authority, the minister who chairs the board is fully committed to that. So just to let you know, it is our commitment to ensure that we create opportunities for this industry, that we are able to develop skill sets, that our regulatory interventions are creating jobs, creating opportunities, but not also just creating jobs for the few, allowing people who have the skills and are willing to develop cybersecurity skills also to take advantage of that. I believe after today, most of you will have a better sense of what the authority is doing. That the work being done there is not government work, in quote. And so far, the actions that we have taken as authority is producing tangible results to the industry. But I'm really requesting for you. I believe in champions. It's not when you are there in your home, nobody sees you, your kitchen, somebody comes and calls you. No. We've seen people really knocking at our doors. Look, this is the idea, let's move with it. It's very important we look at it. In the public sector, remember, and I learned one principle. When you have a company, how many are the shareholders? Roughly how many? Could be 1, 2, 3. It can be probably in their hundreds, right? And let's say the rural bank, that almost every customer is also a shareholder. How many? It's not above the thousands. But when you are dealing with the state, how many are the shareholders? Can somebody tell me? I learned this in my first day of public service. How many shareholders has Ghana? How many? 30 million plus shareholders. Practically what it means is Ghana belongs to all of us. And sometimes just understand it. Once you are not sitting at the table, don't think nobody is what? Sitting there. How can you get 30 million to sit at one room? I want to be candid. And sometimes the best approach to use is to recognize champions. People who are doing something. That's why I was commending this gentleman. In his own way, promoting cybersecurity. That is what we see. We are many. We're going to be several professionals. 1,000, 2,000, 5,000. It's not personal. At least not at my authority. So it is an appeal, but also a challenge to you. That if we are sharing all this, that we need people, we need recognition, we need you to be active in this space. With the ideas, with the advocacy, with the support. And I think that is all that we're looking for. I think, again, I want to thank you for how you have worked to sustain this industry. I believe the regulations that we are creating will create the jobs, the cybersecurity jobs, to stay here. But staying here means we need to also elevate our own competencies and approach of doing things. Else, what is the essence of this regulation? Let's challenge ourselves. Sometimes we have issues, competency issues, integrity issues, attitude issues as professionals. Yes. Every business will want to what? Use someone. Use a service provider who is proactive. Whose reporting is what? Second to all? None. Who is there is not about Sunday. Sorry, no, because I'm going to church, I wasn't there. Also, we're having this attack, we called, we didn't get you. Yes, I was at a church service. Please, nobody is telling you not to go to church. But you are not likely to get this response from what? Experts. You've got to be very careful. Again, it is not to undermine your own beliefs, not at all. But sometimes we create the problems. We also sometimes talk too much. Oh, I've gone to do this job. He won't call you for a job. Oh, yes, sometimes you investigate people. And, you try to give opportunity. And technical people, one approach of demonstrating they know. Look, I've been able to even hack into this system. This is their IP addresses. Have you seen that thing before? Of course, you laugh. I think we need to check this. We need to. And again, it will be driven by the industry. So the industry will certainly have to set up their own expectation. How do we develop the market for Ghana to become like Israel? And I'm saying we are leading in this particular area. If we're able to do things well, as we are speaking here, within the sub-region, no doubt, they will look up to us. And I think on that note, I want to thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation. And I'm here to provide any clarity on what I have presented, but also to get your input. Again, it's very important, some of these things that are going up, and see how we can make this successful. Mr. Chairman of the occasion, who is a board member, and Madam Board Member, thank you very much. And all of you, again, something that possibly you may need to know. How many people know the staffing strength of the authority? How many? You think we are big, right? Right? You also think we have money. I want special commendation to the team who have been working with me. I think you have friends, those who are there and then who have left. I believe they are certain. Please clap for them for me. They are here. My staff, are you here? Let's see you. Are you around? Again. And I said, you talk to your friends. I believe one of you has told you the workload there was double. It's not to scare somebody who wants to join us. But that is the real sacrifice people they are making. But the minimal incentives. I think I want to put that on record. I wish you see that. That when you're starting something new in this country, it's not sometimes what you think. There are men and women who are making extraordinary commitment to get things working for us in cybersecurity. Because we believe without getting things working, nobody else will come and do it. So all of us, you go to the US. Yes, all of us, right? But my own experience abroad, and I think many of you know, look, you get to a point that you can't wait to what? To come back home. They won't tell you. There is always a feast. Right? They won't. There is always a feast. So if you think you're going to the US, yes, forever, you get to that point. So I think, while I'm not saying don't live for US and other places, let's recognize the very people who equally have the option, they have the competency, They'll still have the visas. They go and come back. They go. The US, they go, they come back. Right? And work. They are not going to look for marriages and signing. Let's recognize them. And I think in this particular case, I want you to see my staff in that light from today. They are making extraordinary sacrifices to support the work that we are doing. I thank you.
Please, once again, let's appreciate our presenter. He's giving us a food for thought. His presentation has touched on very significant issues, not just at the national level, but also at the global level. How I wish I can do a summary, but surely I wouldn't want to water down on any of the important issues he has outlined. At this moment, we want to do a very critical engagement, and is to pick up your own thoughts. Here in this place, we have professionals, we have service providers, key players within the industry for the presentation that you and I have had the opportunity to listen to and to possibly have made note. We want to look at the highlights. What really stands tall for you? What areas would you want the authority to commit to, especially as we create awareness on cybersecurity this particular month? Areas of concern that at the industry level you would want the authority or generally government to respond to. Can we pick your thoughts? We have the microphone already with you.
Hello, hello.
Yes. I guess we have about 2 already within the audience. Yes, sir. Please let him have the microphone. So you give us your name, your designation, and then you make your comment.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm Professor Christ Abechikester from GCTU. Unfortunately, I'm not from industry. I'm from academia because we have the industry completely different from the academia. Now, after listening to vision and everything, I realized that it looks like there is going to be a bridge between certain sectors and control over certain sectors that is not supposed to be the case. I'm moving towards that sector very well. Cybersecurity is not new, and the principles that governs that space has been with us even before the birth of Jesus Christ. Yes, it has to do with cryptology, and cryptology has been there before the birth of Jesus Christ. And these things have been practiced, used by societies, used by agencies, communications between commanders with their chiefs, and that has been used within the battlefield. And we've seen advancements within those sectors in terms of its effectiveness within the First World, the Second World War. The ending of the Second World War is on the work of Turing, and then fought the Polish and stuff like that. That led to when we moved to the phase of a stage where we've seen internet spreading. The extension of the sector also fall in place. Now we are looking at a situation where we have the expansion of the network capabilities, we have the 5Gs, we have the water communications happening, we have the expansion of operations by government, moving from the US government, the expansion of the GIG, that is the Global Information Grid, and then we also have other countries that are expanding. So we have to separate the defense sector from the academic sector, and also from the business sector. And only most of the countries that are very advanced look at the triage. They try to work with it. When you look at the US government, UK government that have actually advanced within this cyberspace with their national security agency or the Central Security Service or where we have a command currently, and when you look UK government, where we have the government community headquarters and how they regulate their cyber activities and stuff like that, those are the people that we have to use as benchmark. Now, not all the activities within the cyberspace has to be regulated. Within the sector of the industry, yes, you can go ahead and do some regulation because there are operation standards that are used there. But when you move to the defense sector and national security and all those issues, you have to be very careful how you try to regulate it. Because they should be the pivotal point that shows certain directions for government and certain operations. And that is when your country can thrive. Then those technologies can be built and developed and used and governed by these people. But if you try to lead it from the other end, what will happen to you is that you will continue to be the consumer of other countries' products, and then you'll be dependent on them for support, intelligence, and direction, which is not good when it comes to nations. Because when we talk about collaborations and information exchange, it depends on the data you have and how you perform the operations within that data and how you share those critical information. And if you don't thrive on that, as I said, you will continue to provide information to them. And we can also learn a very good example from Israel, how they were able to advance and be able to move into that kind of level where there is collaboration and equal respect between the nations that are very advanced within that space and then the one that also quickly emerged and joined that kind of space too as well. So these things are very needed. And also when we certain independent societies, for example, when you look at ISOC, we have also the IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force. They are responsible for the development of technologies that govern the internet, including the recent TLS Transport Layer version 1.0 that was by developed at IETF, which has a collaborative members from Apple. You have the NIST, National Institute of Standard and Technology, and Kuwait. I was also there in
Prof,
to participate
so
in most of
you
those.
may want to be concluding
Yes,
that point.
Yes, I'll be concluding soon. So when you look at that collaborative approach in terms of developing the internet standard that governs the operation of the internet, the exchange of information from server clients and other things, the TLS version 1.3, that sector is independent, and most of the people there are researchers and other things, and certain certifications are not extended to that space. So we shouldn't treat the cybersecurity space as other professional like law and stuff like that. So we have to try to set it. But in terms of setting industrial standard operations, yes, you can go ahead and apply certain certifications and other things to that sector, but we should not extend it to other places. Else, we will create a problem where our generations will continue to suffer in terms of controlling it, ensure that we also play a critical role in the information superiority space, which is the current competition in terms of the global space currently. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So for the participant, questions will be responded to, and then contributions would also be taken care of. That will be noted for reflections. Let me know if you want to make a contribution. Just lift your hand. Yes, sir. My lady, please hand over the microphone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to congratulate the authority and all the stakeholders for a wonderful, wonderful effort. And my name is Adam Gleiman. I'm head of cybersecurity for Global Secure Solutions. My point somehow kind of connected to what he's saying, in the sense that I'm looking at it from a threat intelligence perspective. Because if you have all these sectoral sets, you have all these CIIs where you're having incidents and reporting, you ultimately want to know, from a national security standpoint, who are your threat actors? What are their tactics? What are their techniques? What procedures are they using? And then you also want to be able to share that threat information for other companies that have not yet been attacked, to raise their defenses so that they become immune to those kinds of things. So in a way, I really can vibe what he's saying, because you need a certain body to make those decisions. You need a body to sit down, collect all the information, analyze it, and know how our situational awareness is, whether we're being hacked by Koreans or Chinese or Russians or whatever. So I think with the regulatory and the extent to which it goes, I will agree with him that in a sense, there has to be a focus on a body that is actually looking at the intelligence, analyzing it, and making quick decisions with it. Also, this is my comment in terms of looking at everything in terms of the framework and the structure. I think it's fantastic, honestly. I've gone through the directive, I've gone through the act. There's one thing that I think is missing, which is probably planned for down the line, but I think we need to look at it now, because it's also about framework. There's a whole framework in itself for sharing information among those set bodies and between those sectors. And that framework there's probably a lot of work that is going to have to be put into that. And it's the whole concept of information sharing and analysis centers. So this is just my contribution. And I would once again want to say congratulations to everyone even here. Thank you very much.
Adam, thank you very much. We appreciate you. So yes, I think we still have the microphone here. Oh, the lady has it. Sir, can you hold on just for a couple of minutes? Please, let's have your contribution, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. I'm a cybersecurity enthusiast, also a mentor on a
Please check your microphone.
Hi, can you hear me now? Okay. So I'm Rachel, and I've been creating awareness on a professional platform like LinkedIn. I'm well known over there. I wanted to know how far Ghana has gone when it comes to adopting to cloud security. I specialize in cloud security myself, but I wanted to know how far Ghana is in that aspect. Also, I transitioned from my career into cybersecurity, and I've been active in this field for a while now. I also mentor some upcoming cybersecurity enthusiasts, let's say tertiary levels and others. So I wanted to know which channel do we go to after they are done with their education. Where do we go to? What are some of the opportunities there for them? And what channel is there for us who also transitioned from another career into cybersecurity? I had no IT background, but right now, with what I've achieved, I guess we should be also given an opportunity in this field, cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel. We would have an opportunity for our presenter to respond to that. Yes, sir. Please hold on. There is a hand here. Let him have the microphone. Let's have your contribution, sir.
My name is Samuel Boateng, EO for Slam Technologies, both Ghana here and in the US. I like the regulations part, and then information sharing is one of the key areas. Now, looking for the information sharing, I was looking to see if there is an area where we could go and look for, to identify where information should be shared. For example, in the US, we use what we call the MSI SAC. We use FSI SAC. These are some of the few examples that we use. Do we have anything like that, where we could go and just pull the information and identify maybe the type of attacks that is trending in our surfaces, and then identify the threat landscapes? And also, when a company is breached, how long does it take for them to report the exact breach? Let's take, for example, the ECG incidents. We are all aware of that. We need to know, as a cyber community, we need to definitely understand what is going on. We don't need apologies. We don't need anything. We understand the problem. And so when it happens, so that other systems could definitely protect their systems as well. Also, do we have incident response level 3, where we've built in a nation to identify, just do investigation, a proper investigation, and forensic to identify what type of attack, is it a 0-day or signatures, whatever is happening within the organization. And I think that's all I have.
Samuel, thank you very much. We have the microphone here. Yes, sir.
Okay, hello. I'm just an ordinary Ghanaian citizen. So, looking at the comment earlier on from the doctor about the fact that we have the larger stakeholders, the 30 million Ghanaians who are the major stakeholders, the public utility services. For me, when I see, I'm just wondering that the next moment we hear of any other incident that will prevent me from accessing any utility like water or whatever it is. So for me, I more towards a preventive approach than detection. Let's go practical. What are the challenges? And find out that another public utility is having a challenge providing us the service that's more important to me. Talking is becoming too much. Let's go to the ground and find out what are the challenges they are facing. Let's ensure things are rightly so we don't keep on getting incidents here and there. That's my concern. So for me, that's my little bit of contribution. Let's just ensure that the kind of issues that are existing in the public utility environment, we find out and solve them. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dote. We can take about 4 more. Yes.
My name is Nicole. I'm a cybersecurity specialist, and I work for an oil and gas company. So I think the gentleman over there kind of like hit on the questions I was going to ask about the ECG issue, but then I kind of just have follow-up questions that he didn't touch on. My first question is, if the government has a rapid recovery team for such an attack, and the second follow-up question is, how often are these response arrangements tested and exercised?
Thank you. That will be responded to. Yes, sir.
Hello. My name is Abdul Mumin. I'm sure by now those who have been regular to this forum they know me by now. I'm from Oduma Solutions, and I want to find out from the presentation that Doctor made on the sectorial sets that are to be established. Would there be opportunity for industry players like MSSPs to partake in this sectorial sets? If we...
Excuse me, will there be industry what?
Players like MSSPs, would they have the opportunity to partake in this sectorial sets in the terms of if there will be limitations to whether the sectorial sets will only be managed by the heads of those sectors, or they will give the opportunity for other companies to be able to provide such services to these sectorial sets as well. Yes.
Thank you, sir. I guess we can make time to pick 2 more submissions.
So, thank you. Kojo Boabeng, an MPhil student from University of Science and Technology. I'm Kojo Boabeng from KNUST, Cybersecurity and Digital Forensics. Number one, I want to say that I commend the authority on the thought of regulating the protection of information, critical information infrastructure, and then the idea of the kind of job that this is going to create for the cybersecurity domain. But my question is, what is the intention of the authority on helping academic organizations in developing departments when it comes to training of experts in the field of cybersecurity? For example, universities like KNUST, GIMPA, where cybersecurity is being taught, departments have been set up. The authority haven't thought of regulating these departments on how this teaching and learning is being done, setting up laboratories and then resources to facilitate this education. Thank you.
Thank you, Kojo. Wow, more than we anticipated. Let's have this gentleman behind. There is a hand here. Here.
My name is Tony Clark, the Black Right. My question will go to the doctor. To what extent do we have the regulations with the Cybersecurity Authority extending to government? So what I want to say is this: how are the various agencies of the government in sync with the regulations that you have expounded today? To what extent are they putting the in line with whatever it is that we've talked about today, so that it would trickle down to the private organizations? The second question is that, do we have a policy on data, one-time data collection in this country? It's something that I have asked for over and over again, and I don't seem to get an answer. A policy on one-time data collection. So I am Tony. A government agency collects my data as Tony. If I'm going to another government agency to transact business, I need to be identified as Tony. I don't need to go and then put in my grandfather's name and my grandmother's name and then be vulnerable to all the types of attacks that will come to my personal identity. That's the question that I have. Thanks.
Tony, thank you very much. We would give the opportunity to the resource person to respond to some of the questions, and then I guess we'll come back for the second round of questions. Is that okay? All right, so let's invite Dr. Boesiako and Chubuesiako. But David, Mr. Go, maybe at a point in time, we want to hear from you. Kojo's question had to do with the collaboration between industry and academia, and I think IIPGH is doing something with AFOS on Indacted, so you may want to respond to some of them. Doc? Okay, Mr.